Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the November 14th, 2023 meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission. We're using Zoom for this meeting, which allows the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. We can request that members of the public provide their names for the purpose of keeping accurate meeting minutes. The meeting is being conducted remotely per the acts of 2023 and Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The meeting is being both audio and video recorded, and please be careful not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the meeting by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to the members of the body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. We will turn to the first item on the agenda, introduce each speaker. Please speak clearly in a way to produce accurate meeting minutes, and please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please speak through the chair, and each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And with that, we'll turn to the agenda. Are there any questions, suggested changes or concerns with the agenda as published?
No.
I'm hearing none. We'll consider that adopted by unanimous consent. We have the October 10th, 2023 draft minutes. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, corrections with those minutes? Hearing none, we'll consider those adopted by unanimous consent. We have to ratify the October 4th, October 24th, and November 8th warrants. I would entertain a motion for that ratification.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Topham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Viscarin?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. We're going to move on to public comment for items that are not otherwise on the agenda. You could raise your virtual hand or turn your camera on and give us a wave, speak out. Not seeing any. With that, we'll move on to pending leases and contracts set forth on Exhibit 1. And if we could please share Exhibit 1 for the public to view, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Carberg.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll speak while Bayana operates the screen share. So at the top of the exhibit, we have 2 catering licenses for A Taste of Nantucket and Island Kitchen for $1,500 each. This is our fee and agreement with the company. Each company then provides catering for their GA clients through the FBO. We have 2 great companies here, and I look forward to their continued service. We then have a lease amendment with Bamber Trucking for $9,500. This is for hauling and prepping property at 33 Bunker Road in advance for our declaration of surplus property, which is on the agenda later. We have a 3-year contract renewal with Infax. Infax provides the support services that are existing for our flight information display system. We interviewed 1 or 2 other firms for competing services, and we did find that Infax was providing the combination of the best price and best service options. On the next page, we have a $25,837 change order. This is change order number 3 to the Taxiway Golf project and is related to the FAA's reimbursable agreement for communication cable rerouting and splice. The $25,000 figure is the net of, I believe, an additional $99,000 in new duct bank, less $74,000, since we can reuse the existing fiber optic cable. It's also a non-cost item for an extension of 21 calendar days for that work. We also have a $1,500 for Unify Aviation ground handling agreement. Unify provides the ground handling for both Delta and United. I wanted to point out that Unify had initially submitted their business fee this spring prior to operation, but failed to return the signed agreements until this commission meeting cycle. We informed Unify that we weren't happy with the delayed receipt of the agreements. We assessed penalties for operating without agreement through the summer. I do recommend accepting and approving this agreement retroactively, but looking ahead to 2024 and assuming again that the airport provides adequate lead time for their execution of the contract, we may delay activating their badges if we don't receive the future agreements within a good faith period. Then on the last page, we have 2 lease agreements respectively for $27,175 at Toscana and for 11,323 square feet, and $30,206 for 21,329 square feet. These 2 leases take advantage of portions of lots behind their existing leaseholds that are currently unused but usable as rentable space. And I am recommending your approval and adoption on all.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or wish to discuss any of the pending leases or contracts?
No.
Is there a motion to approve, adopt, accept the pending leases and contracts?
I'll make that motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Topham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Blanzer?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. We have to discuss and approve the airport manager's employment agreement. And as you all are aware from the agreement we had negotiated with Mr. Carver, there was a clause where we agreed to provide a annual performance evaluation. I've discussed this with counsel, and he said the proper way to do this is in public session. I've reached out to each of you and spoke with many of you for some input, and with that input, I've prepared a brief evaluation that I'd like to read, and then we'll open it up to comment and discussion by the commission. So the performance evaluation for Noah Carberg. Noah has been the airport manager of Nantucket Memorial Airport since the beginning of the calendar year. He's consistently exceeded the expectations and standards for his role. Key strengths and achievements: Noah has demonstrated exceptional skills and knowledge in managing the airport's daily operations, including safety, security, maintenance, customer service, and financial performance. He has fostered a positive and collaborative work environment where he motivates, supports, empowers the staff to achieve their goals and grow their careers. He has been respectful, courteous, and professional with everyone that he interacts with. He was cooperative through the state investigation into the filed ethics complaint and acted professionally in accepting the outcome. Areas for any review: I think it's important to have areas for improvement and development. Noah could benefit from continued attendance of professional development courses or workshops to update his skills and knowledge on the latest trends and best practices in the aviation industry. He should continue to delegate some of his tasks and responsibilities to his staff and not try to handle all matters. Overall comments and recommendation: I said Noah is an asset to our organization, a valuable member of our community. He's demonstrated leadership, management, professional skills in his role as the airport manager. With that, the commission, any individual commissioners are free to offer anything additional they may wish. And our other decision is whether or not to provide the same salary increase as was done for the union and the non-union personnel, or to make any other changes. So with that, I would open it up to any discussion, and then Mr. Carberg, if you had any, you don't have to say anything, or if there was anything you had concerns with or wish to address the commission, certainly we would welcome that. Commissioners?
No comment.
Okay, so I take it that everyone's pretty much in agreement with the review. And is there consent to provide the same increase as has historically been done for past managers, and to mirror that which was done for the union and the non-union personnel?
Do you need a motion for that, Arthur, or?
I think it would be unanimous consent unless, you know what, let's do a motion, please.
Oh, that's fine, Tony, you make, I just wanted to see, I was just checking to see if you needed help there with that.
Is that your motion?
So, yeah, yes,
Mr. Marks, okay, Mr. Marks made a motion, and is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Topham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer,
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin,
aye.
Mr. Marks,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you for the continued service, Mr. Carberg. Enjoy working with you.
All right, and thank you to the commission for the continued opportunity to lead staff and steward the facility for the community.
Appreciate that. And with that, we we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the declaration of surplus property on Bunker Road, Mr. Carberg.
Boyana, would you be able to share the front page and then the figure? Thank you. So this declaration of surplus property is an updated and expanded declaration that you saw in the September meeting to include additional area now totaling 28,000 feet squared, 28,000 square feet. The fair market value price remains $2.50. The area is shown approximately as indicated from the GIS. And with your motion and approval, we can move to craft and issue the RFP for this area.
Does anybody have any questions? Or is there a motion to declare the parcel as surplus property?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Not hearing any further discussion. Ms. Topham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer,
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin,
aye.
Mr. Marks,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you. And that will take us on to pending matters. Mr. Carberg.
Okay. For pending matters, I'm going to make a brief delegation to Ms. Woods for the PFAS investigation update.
Welcome, Ms.
Hi,
Woods.
everyone.
Hello.
Thank you. So you all have a status table in your packets. To date, there are 550 samples that have been taken from 80 private wells. The town has their second PFAS summit that will be held on December 12th, and the airport is excited to participate in that and share our testing activities and results with other stakeholders in the community. We think shared knowledge around this is really the best approach, so excited about that. We also have Weston Solutions coming to the airport. They'll be on site the week of December 4th for temporary deep well monitoring installation. And the data collected there will primarily be used to measure and confirm groundwater plume movement so that we have a strong understanding of the hydrogeological layout of everything. We also wanted to quickly update the commission on a fuel farm incident that occurred last month. On October 13th, there were 4 gallons of diesel fuel that spilled into the fuel farm secondary containment basin. While we were pumping the basin water, which was presumably contaminated with PFAS and now diesel fuel, through the GAC filter, it had a reaction with the filter, possibly F3, and produced a pretty unsatisfactory effluent, to say the least. And so we immediately halted pumping and have held all of that water in the containment basin while we await samples. We produced 13 separate water samples from both the catch basin and the effluent of the GAC filter to measure what was going in and what was coming out. And we're waiting to get the analysis for that. That will be the analysis for PFAS, VOCs, which stands for volatile organic compound, and EPH, which stands for extractable petroleum hydrocarbons. And that information will inform any changes needed to our GAC filter. We also are anticipating a December document delivery and consultant presentation for the interim status update in the commission meeting next month. And that is it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. Does anybody have any questions?
No,
Just one comment, the PFAS summit, is there a time on that? That's the same date as our next commission meeting. Is that during the day?
I believe it is during the day. I can get that for you in just a minute.
We could always, it might be helpful just to circulate it anyway, not to put you on the spot. Just in case anybody wants to attend. I mean, we might see it advertised anyway, but just.
I just got that for you, Chair, and that is at 8:30 a.m.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Anybody else, anything further? Please keep us posted. Keep up the good work. We certainly appreciate it. Moving on back to Mr. Carberg.
Yeah, thank you. For the crew quarters project, our OPM at CHA provided us an internal zoning and planning review of that project. Based off of that analysis, it confirmed, well, not confirmed, we looked at the permitting pathway as advised by planning staff, and I made the decision to retain Bodette and Swain. It's typical that a planning board application is shepherded by a local real estate council. And I think this firm has the capacity to make sure our submission goes smoothly, and they're already working for us. They're on board. They reviewed the 80% review drawings from Griffin Architects, and they have reviewed our housing management plan as a required submission to the planning board. This next planning board review and approval for a special permit for our housing project will take place on December 11th at 4 p.m. I believe our packet was submitted by yesterday's deadline. I'm not that familiar with the planning board schedules, but our packet is in, and I believe we have it provided to the commission as a handout. I'm not going through all of those documents, but the application's available. Since it will be made public through another regulatory board. I wanted the commission to have access to it as well. One other item that we are coordinating on with the town is that No Whittier Farm Road is scheduled to be paved possibly in 2024. In that case, there's typically a moratorium on excavating for utilities for the next 3 years. So we're working on advanced coordination with DPW and the sewer department, just to see if there's a way we can coordinate our own electrical and sewer access to our site without having to rip up and repave a road twice. And we'll continue to advise on that. For the South Apron expansion project, the contractor will begin to mobilize in a few weeks with that date to be determined. Not a shocking figure, but the figure, we need 90 barges of materials to come over from the mainland. So that's the scope of the material incoming for this project and the transport to the site. Not only because it's a large public-facing project with a lot of material transport traffic, but we feel that it's appropriate that the airport and our consultant develop and deploy a public-facing project meeting outreach to residents before the contractor really starts mobilizing and transporting these 90 barges of material or starts site work. We'll have a date to be determined as imparted by the contractor's schedule. Once we have that date, we'll pick probably a late afternoon, early evening session where the greatest number of residents can attend. And we're thinking of about a 60-minute airport presentation. Both airport staff, the consultant, present our plans, our purpose and need, and have a public Q&A available. With the recording available on YouTube, we would invite up to 2 commissioners to attend. We'd like the freedom to not have to post and run it as a pure airport commission meeting. We'd like a little bit more flexibility, but we would like up to 2 commission members to attend. Otherwise, in absence of more detailed information from the contractor, we are thinking that construction could start in mid-March, and tree removal would also be, I believe it would be required to be completed in the dormant season, or to be completed by April to avoid any bad impacts. And we'll continue to coordinate that through environmental with our consultant. Are there any questions on those 2 projects?
Question.
Marks.
Yeah, just with respect to the starting in March and then trying to move 90 barges of material out there during the summertime down Nobody Farm Road. Is that the intent? To like March on?
So I'm presuming until we have that initial meeting with Robert Biauer, but I think their intents would be to start taking delivery as soon as possible and transporting and stockpiling that material on site throughout the winter and spring.
All right.
And to minimize the amount of truck traffic that has to go through Nantucket's summer
Yeah.
population.
You've been on Nobody Farm Road and seen the traffic there in the summertime. It's going to cause huge delays if you did try to do it then. If we did try to do it then anyway. Another question I had
Mr. Chair, may I answer?
Yes, please, Mr. Lasden.
Thank you. Mr. Marks, their intent is to start hauling almost immediately. They're working on their badges and they've already submitted their documents for approval. And then the intent is to start shipping material starting essentially next month. And then ship material December, January, and February. And then whatever's left, maybe finish in March. But the intent is to do the shipping now in the off season.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I said one other question, Nora, Mr. Carver, you brought up relative to Nobody Farm Road and the repaving, and I was curious if the town had reached out to you at all with any thoughts about trying to, help with the intersection on the milestone there where we own that property on the eastern side of Nobody Farm Road. With it, just curious, I don't know if it's appropriate for us to reach out to the town, maybe that we have that. I'm thinking like turning lanes or something, making the road wider, because Nobody Farm's pretty narrow as it is, and I mean a turning lane to Sconset out there I would think would help a little bit. Just throwing it out there. I was just curious if there was any communication about any way to improve it. If we're going to pave it, I think that's the time to do it.
Sure. I can speak directly to that. Plus Department did reach out to kind of, I'd say, take our temperature about if they were to install a rotary, how it might work, or if they want to install a slip lane from Nobody Farm to Milestone, how that would work. I had some initial conversations with the FAA, and I think that is an overall public and community benefit that also benefits, quite frankly, airport employees and airport travelers, where we would work to accommodate the land needed for a rotary or a slip lane, I think it's called, through a direct sale to the town of a minimum amount of land that they need. So they would end up owning the space needed for an intersection. So it would be a sale of and I want to emphasize a very small amount of property versus a easement or a use license.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything further?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Thank you. Move on to item 8, Mr. Carver, the rates and charges are. I don't know if you have anything further to add, or is it simply the announcement, the public hearings proposed for January 9th?
It's that announcement. We're asking the commission to open a public hearing on January 9th for airport rates and charges. We typically do it every year in that time frame. We would return in December for an informal review of major items, after which we would engage with and invite stakeholders to the January 9th meeting. And I believe we need a vote to open a public hearing. Is that correct? Or to set that date?
Yes, I think we can take a vote. Or
Or you-
it's just the proposed,
I don't think we need to vote for set the date. I think that's just informational. I think it's just as I
if you
recall.
agree with the date, then.
Yeah, then we just need to vote to open we just have to open the public hearing when we do the actual process. I don't even think that's a vote, but
Okay.
are there any concerns with that date for a public hearing from anyone? It sounds like you have unanimous consent to proceed with that date, please.
Okay. Thank you.
And then moving on to finance, please.
Okay, moving on to finance, beg of 15 seconds while I'm going to share my screen for the finance discussion. Okay. So thank you. We have I have back-to-back 4 topics. They're a little bit lengthy, so I apologize, but I think they are important. I want to recognize Jamie Sansbury is here as well, and able to answer questions on finance items. She also will be shy about it, but she deserves a great deal of recognition for her work on this. So we have received our first quarter fiscal year 24 financials and completed our first quarter report for the town. This report is typically presented by the airport manager to the select board at their request. I've included it here for the airport commission's review. The first fiscal quarter covers July through September, and it's an important bellwether for our year-end operating position. That's one reason why I wanted to spend some time on it here. I'm going to rely mostly on the narrative more heavily than the numbers in the income statement. But again, Jamie is here to answer any more technical or accounting level questions. So from the financial highlights page, revenue appears to be down 2%. However, it is actually flat due to the timing of a pass-through expense that we received in fiscal year 23 for the same quarter. So fiscal year quarter 1 typically generates 50 to 60% of our total annual revenue. Quarter 1 here generated 15.5 million, or 86% of our budgeted revenue. And I hope that's an indication of the remainder of 2024's potential and not a cue that we're just going to throw in the towel and coast until the end of June. A couple of the notable items that underlie that revenue increase. Rental income is up 12% over that period, which has been driven by both new and reassessed existing land leases. Fee income is down 5%, and I attribute that directly to poor September weekend weather. Expenses are still thrown off by COVID-era grant receipts, especially in regards to the purchase of fuel. Actual fuel expenses are down 1.06 million, or 19%, due to lower wholesale prices and the fact that we didn't buy as much in this quarter. We had artificial price limits in the summer, or artificial uplift limits in the summer, and then bad weather in September. Remaining expenses are broadly down across categories. And while Jamie has worked hard specifically towards expense reduction, not all of the use reduction trends are long-term performance expectations. For example, payroll is down 17%. That's due to retirement and short staffing in the beginning of the summer. And our FBO, service, and maintenance categories are down, again, due to understaffing and deferral of non-critical maintenance and improvements. So those are not trends we're happy to see, and they're certainly not sustainable trends. For the airport summary page, certified retained earnings as of July 1st, 2023 are 9.8 million for a projected fund balance of 8.7 million as of the close of the first quarter. Jamie will be working with airport staff on a capital and project payment strategy for your approval that we will take to the May 2024 annual town meeting. For airport revenues, I'm going to focus for a paragraph or so on our fuel revolver. We had set the 2024 fuel revolver revenue cap at 6.9 million, which budgeted for 2 million to flow out of the revolver and into our operating fund. This was a deliberately conservative fuel budget, and we have already exceeded our revenue target with 2.4 million overflowing from the revolver into the operating accounts. We still may need to raise our revolver cap for 2024. Every 100,000 where we raise the cap reduces the revenue to the operating by an equal amount. But right now we're in a positive position for the fuel revolver, as every gallon we sell now through June 30th is on a pathway into next year's retained earnings. So this is a beneficial position for the airport. Some of these items will flow into my discussion or my presentation of the operating budget, which is next. But are there any questions on fiscal year 24 first quarter performance?
Commissioners? Well, please proceed.
Okay. Okay, so in your packet and on my screen is the preliminary fiscal year 25 operating budget for your review and discussion. Staff goal is to receive feedback. We need to make a parallel presentation to the town manager and select board. And I believe we'll return to you for final adoption of a budget in December, possibly January. So on our summary sheet, we're targeting revenue for $12.7 million in revenue, which is up 1.2 million. The revenue in this case is demonstrated. I believe the forecast that we've done is sound and supports that increase. Our expenses we have listed as 13.1 million, or up 1.5 million. Again, inflation is something we all know about, but we are also investing in more outside services and a new position, which I'll discuss later. We're proposing a fuel revolver cap of $6 million. Appropriately, it's conservative, but again, we are likely to come back to you sometime in the next year and ask for it to be increased. And that's just based again off of sales and actual purchase prices that we see at the time. Our target ending fiscal balance or fund balance is 4.8 million. Again, this is a budget, it's a tool, and it's a target. This is a good target, but given the scope of projects that we're taking on, it's not likely enough to keep us from assuming new debt. It's a stretch goal, but I think a good goal for the airport to have is to keep it from having to issue long-term debt. And we'll have to see if we can make that goal. For revenue items, what I'm going to go through now is I've picked a few categories to discuss where there are major changes from the previous year. For fuel sales, we are anticipating a 10% increase in revenue. While we will increase the fuel revolver cap, we don't want to over-rely on fuel for operating income, so we're taking an appropriately conservative revenue target. I do expect revenue to exceed this amount, but I don't want the airport to have to count on it. Rental income for land is at an 18.6% increase. We're developing a nice portfolio that's being driven by both reassessment and new leases. Auto rental commissions We're forecasting a 12.9% increase. Our 3-year actual average outweighs the loss that we believe we're going to see with Turo in the marketplace. Airline landing fees, we're forecasting a 10.4% increase. This is more in line with the 3-year average and more in line with larger, heavier aircraft being operated, not necessarily more aircraft. Commercial ramp fee, we're forecasting a 38% increase. Again, this is per our established phase-in ramp fee policy, and we'll go over that in further detail with our rates and charges hearing as well. Parking lot fees, we're conservatively forecasting a decline of 20% while ground transportation is in flux and we resolve the Turo issue. So 18% for the parking lot. And then interest on investments, that one should jump right out at me, but I'm not finding it here. Here we are. This credit is due to Jamie and Brian Turbett. They found more lucrative short-term accounts to hold our cash. For expense items, security salary, we're showing a 56% increase. This is both due to annual increases and one new position that we are requesting, which I'll describe in the personnel section. ARF and ops expenses as a whole are up 11%. We have a fairly new staff. They all need, not they all, but all of our relatively new hires need onboarding, training. It's expensive to bring the training to the airport and to send airport employees to the training, as well as equip them with new turnout gear, safety gear, etc. Service and maintenance. Sorry to jump around on you, but I'm highlighting the end of the category subtotal. The service and maintenance category is up 61.8% as a whole. So across several categories, we are escalating line items for outside contracts for vehicle maintenance, building components, airfield grounds, and others. For the fuel facility storage or for the fuel farm, there's both newer items that are needed now, such as vapor recovery testing, repairs, and investment in the farm, which we think is commensurate with the farm status as a major revenue center. So we're investing in the farm so farm can invest in the airport. Professional services are up 18.5%. Again, the way I like to explain it is this is a catch-all for legal services. It's a catch-all for non-AIP task orders with our consultants that aren't otherwise budgeted. We have more leases and more complicated leases, so we have more contract work for Airport Council. We also are taking on more external work that we might have otherwise had internally with staff. Police protection services are up 12%. Beg your pardon, I should have highlighted my own copy earlier. Oh, my apologies, I can't find the category. I will just talk through it. So the airport Leo, this is provided by Nantucket Police Department. They have a new labor contract. Their cost has gone up. I'm very happy with that cost and with that service, and we pass that through to our users. Insurance premiums and auto liability. Here we are, police protection services. Insurance premiums and auto liability, we're holding a 43% increase. This is a combination of an increase in our portion of the town premium. We have a very well layered insurance profile with the town, where the town provides some coverages and we provide some of our own. It's a combination of the town premium, prepayment for our premium, and holding funds for future incidents, which do happen in hangars on the ramp. And when these occur, they're expensive. They start at a few $1,000s for a small GA aircraft, and they start at tens of thousands of dollars for a larger corporate aircraft. We also have a debt service ban interest forecast of 194%. This is significant as we have not only more projects coming up, but these projects are expensive. And even though we have the same sponsor share and we're not taking them long-term, our short-term costs are high. So we need to plan to have the appropriate line item to cover our short-term bond anticipation notes. Or personnel, I've alluded to it a couple times. Now I'll actually explain it. I would like to develop a new position, and I'm holding money in the budget for that in fiscal year 25. The terminal environment has fundamentally changed, but we're still trying to manage it with the same personnel grouping that we had 15 to 20 years ago. There's an increasing role for a full-time flexible person who can work weekends on the summer to manage security roles, airline engagement, airline performance compliance, and the passenger experience. I'm calling it an assistant terminal manager for now, though that title might change. I envision this position as being a non-union full-time employee, but with some flexibility. This person would work on a Thursday to Monday shift in the summer, so we have administrative coverage without unbalancing the remainder of staff's workload. And it would possibly be part-time in winter. So with that being said, I will pause there to take questions. And hopefully Jamie is still here as well.
Does anybody have any questions on the financial information Mr. Carberry just reviewed?
I think he's really reviewed it quite well. Thank you.
Agreed. Please keep us posted on the new position.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds like let's continue, please.
So for the airport capital improvement plan, I am not going to go through this document line by line, but I will highlight a few changes. So the revised capital improvement plan is here for your review. We held our meeting with FAA and Mass DOT Aeronautics. And again, the CIP, as I like to say, it's less about whether the FAA and the DOT like or dislike the airport's approach and the projects, but it's how critical the project is to FAA's goals and available funding priorities in the region. There's always movement in this program. The further out one goes, the more items tend to move around. But the impactful items that I did want to review, spend most of it on 2024, are AIP 1, 2, and 3. These will be our federal share projects for the fiscal year. AIP 1 is reimbursement of the Southwest ramp drainage and electrical structure replacements. We're starting this work now with the South Apron project, and we'll be reimbursed through entitlements for those costs. AIP 2 is the continuation of our environmental permitting requirements. What we've seen with these requirements is that we have long-term and expensive ongoing environmental monitoring requirements, which are fine. That's the cost associated with doing large capital projects. When these requirements are negotiated with a review entity, they become AIP eligible, but the duration of those requirements often exceeds the period of the AIP grant. So now we're in a situation where we're managing a separate grant to manage the management required by the initial grant. So with the wordplay aside, it allows us to continue to take on the appropriate ecological stewardship and build the agencies who should be responsible for this mitigation. And then AIP 3 is the rehab of the runway 624 center line. the FAA will allow us to have a funded project to mitigate the raveling that we're seeing on the existing center line. We'll do a limited mill and overlay, and then we can push out our major runway reconstruction projects. In 2025, we have money held for the permitting as the result of our master plan update, if needed. High mast light replacements, these are the 10 or so 38, 40-foot high mast light poles between Juliet and the fuel farm. They're eligible for replacements. In 2027, we're able to slot in the runway 24 high-speed exit taxiway. This is both the airport's and air traffic's next most critical project. So we're glad to see that where it is. And then in 2028, we have the monster, which is the $94 million runway 624 reconstruction project. So with that being said, the CIP does move around. It's a good planning tool. Mr. Laston is here as well. Are there any questions on the CIP?
Any commissioners have any questions, thoughts for any other projects that should possibly be included on here? General discussion. I have a couple. When is this actually finalized, Mr. Carberg? If we had any other thoughts or input, or is this the final draft?
So this is, Rich, I'm going to take a stab at and correct me if I'm wrong. This is finalized, and this is the basis of 2024's AIP projects. We are scoping these 3 projects now,
Right.
which will result in proceeding with those grants. Everything else is fungible, can be moved around.
So the out years 25 on, well, next year 25 becomes the one that is becomes sort of fixed, if you will, on an annual basis, and the other years are projections and sort of a worksheet, if you will.
Correct. I like to think fiscal year 2025, those projects have a 75% shot happening. 2026, 50-50. Anything further out than that is, I wouldn't bet on it. Not my own money anyway.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And I did notice that, I thought we usually had fence in every year, but you have it in next year and not the other out years. Is it because you think we've done the perimeter and they're taking a break in that, or it's just because it's local, or any just wondering on that?
So again, Rich, I'm going to take first stab at this, but correct me if I'm wrong. I have to give this the longer answer. For years, the airport would always include a section of fence with any major AIP projects. We changed FAA engineers, and they wanted to see fencing done in its own separate project. Now I think we're back in the situation with FAA engineers. I'm not being glib. It's just means to an end. I think we're back into inclusion of fencing in major capital projects. And that's what we're doing as part of the Southwest Ramp expansion and what I expect to do going forward.
And then if I may, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right.
That's fine. So, Mr. Chair, the other reality is that the FAA expects fence to last 20 years, and there's no sort of secret handshake that you're in the middle of the ocean and there's a lot of salt water. So a lot of this fence will be done, unfortunately, at your own cost, unless we can get Mass DOT to help us. But they also use a 20-year life on the fence. So I think in the past, they might have sort of gave us a little more relief than they are now, but they are no longer interested in showing that relief.
Okay, thanks.
It's an unfortunate.
I
Right.
just knew that it's something we've always,
Yes.
there was a change in the way
And
we've done it, and
we
that's
do
why I was
have-
asking.
Yeah, we do have fence in the South Apron project. A piece of fence, unrelated to the South Apron. We have a piece of fence in that project.
Great. Did anybody else have anything further on the capital projects?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm curious about the lights because I know I'm hearing a lot about people are offended by the lighting and everything, and I don't know, Mr. Carver brought it up and I just didn't know how high or how bright or are they gonna be, what are they gonna be?
So that's a great question. The short answer is, I don't know yet because we want to spend some time designing them for, dark sky related criteria.
Mhm.
Do they need to be as high? Do they need to be as bright? Can they be better angled, better shielded? I've talked to Rich and advised him that when we scope this, we want to have some level of public outreach to the neighbors. I don't want to promise that we can do every single item that the community might want us to do, but I think we can improve upon what's there. And we'll just see how much we can improve upon it.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything further? Thanks for going over all that in detail.
You're welcome. And the shortest item is left. Item D, our capital project updates. The airport is back in front of Capcom this Thursday to answer questions on its fiscal year 2025 capital requests. We have provided additional information that Capcom and FinCom membership requested. I have these items available in your packet. I'm not going through them. I was just going to summarize them for you. But briefly, we've provided an updated capital request form for our housing project for supplemental dorm or neighborhood employee housing construction and design of a townhouse. We removed the construction request for the townhouse so we can provide a design package to answer questions before requesting construction funds for a future townhouse. We then have two narrative responses to questions asked about both housing and PFAS. And we've also modified our 2024 AIP3 request that I discussed previously to match the outcome of the FAA DOT CIP meeting, since this will be an AIP funded project, 90% FAA, 5% state. We've also evaluated the sites. We're going to do a full 6 foot wide swath of, I believe, up to 2 or 2.5 inches, which brings us up a little bit over $1 million from the previous $500,000 request. Any questions on those packets before I move to the manager's report?
Please proceed.
For our AIP projects, I'm pleased to report that Taxiway Golf has progressed very well since our last commission meeting. Paving is complete. The markings may be in progress while even as we speak. We do think it will be open and operational after Thanksgiving. Again, I want to thank both Preston, who shepherded this project. Kelsey is the resident engineer from McFarland Johnson. Did a very good job. The concrete hard stand construction, we're pushing out to this spring. There's currently a 4-week or more lead time on materials. We don't want to pour concrete in January, so we're going to push this off to a time when the days are getting longer and the weather's getting warmer instead of the other way around. I don't have an update for you on the master plan. However, the geometry project, we have completed our final workshop and developed our preferred alternatives for stub taxiway locations. For our terminal optimization project, we have received fee proposal documents from McFarland Johnson. McFarland has completed the scoping documents and sent that to our agency partners for comments. We're working on our independent fee estimate, and we are hoping that we will have that complete by the end of November for the December commission meeting. And then we will move straight ahead into design documents so we can compete for bill funding. ARF truck, no update again. That will be several months before it's received. And I mentioned we will be beginning the formal scoping for our 3 new AIP projects. For our non-AIP projects, I don't have updates on hangar development or right-of-way research. For our fence relocation, I reached out to a tenant. I believe we have a final workable design for a minor fence relocation in the bunker area, and then we'll move to implement it. For markings, we've been utilizing the taxiway golf contractor to remark items on the runway that were written up from inspection. I'm happy to report that we sent our closeout letter to the inspector today. And with her acceptance, we can close that item out. For the fuel farm loading rack, one of our periodic inspections uncovered a structural issue with some spalling under the support for a concrete beam. We performed an initial assessment with McFarland Johnson. We determined we can still use the loading rack to offload fuel. Of course, our fuel demands are not high at this time. We can safely work around that, and we will be effecting a repair before the spring. For RFP bid status, I did just provide the update on the terminal project. Thank you for your approval of the 77 and 79 Bunker Road lot leases. The RFP for the impound lot and storage facility, we awarded this lease to GJ Smith, and we were just finishing the final lease drafting, and we will have that for December. And then thank you for your approval of the declaration for 33 Bunker. We will move to prepare and issue the RFP for that. For the operations update, fuel supply, we met internally with internal staff met with World Fuel Services, the Steamship Authority, and others to review 2023 and look forward to 2024. This is a review of reservations, logistics, and coordination. It's not only to maximize our ability to bring fuel over onto the boats, but to maximize the use of the boat for all the operators or all the sellers of hazmat products on island. Gas stations, propane companies. Anytime someone reserves a load on that hazmat boat but can't use it and it goes unused, it's a loss to everyone. So this meeting also tries to make sure that we're all coordinating and using the space available to us. I held a contract renegotiation session with World Fuel Services today. That went well. We're still on month to month with them. I believe we can negotiate a renewal with them, and I'll advise as we go forward. On Friday, we have our technical advisory committee meeting with Natural Heritage. Cameron will be leading that. She's already doing a great job. We have been alternating runway closures for the markings project and for marking taxiway golf where it meets 1533. I want to thank the team for their support. And then initial air service dates. This is based off of publicly available information from the airline reservation engines. JetBlue is reflecting a start date of May 9th, American of June 21st, and then United and Delta both look to start on May 23rd. And I'll update as more schedules are loaded. While they do have flights loaded now, I'll caution those do move around a lot until a couple months ahead of season. Are there any questions before I move into statistics? Okay.
No.
So I do want to advise the commission that over the winter, I'm going to change the way we append and relate statistics in the meeting. I'm more of a graphical person. I think we can do a better job of telling stories that way. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep the same format, just moving through it quickly. For September, total operations were down 16%. Year to date, we're down 11%. Southwest ramp ops for September were down 12%. Employments were down 13% in September and are down 1% year to date. For Boston, Cape Air was down 18% in September. JetBlue was up 3%. American Charlotte service did not operate. DCA was down 10% in September, with JetBlue down 8%, American down 17%. Cape Air was down 25% in New Bedford. United was down 24% for Newark. And JetBlue was down 5% for White Plains. Cape Air was down 42% for Hyannis. In your packet, it shows as up. It's missing a negative sign and it's not marked red. I wanted to call that out for you. Both September and August, Cape Air Hyannis route should be down 43%. JFK for September is down 12%, with Delta down 49%, JetBlue down 7%. LaGuardia was down 15% overall, with JetBlue up 11%, Delta down 68%. Philadelphia was down 5%, O'Hare was down 55%. However, that's one flight compared to a couple previously. Jet A gallons sold are down 15% in September and down 12% in October. I really attribute most of that to bad weather. Year to date, we are now down 6%, which is so well within a range we're satisfied with. 100 low lead is down 12% in September. It was down 8% in October and is down 7% year to date. Again, I don't get really worked up over those figures being down due to both our recent bad weather and our summer limitations. Freight is down 19% in September and down 14% year to date. The mail was up significantly, but Cape Air Freight, UPS, and FedEx were all down. Then we had 9 noise calls in September. And then on personnel, I wanted to welcome or make the commission aware. We have extended an offer to Mr. Alfred Coffin for a maintenance 1 technician. He will be starting November 27th. We're pleased to have him on board. He brings a number of building and construction management skills to the team. We're glad to have him on board. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
No,
Well done. We look forward to a little bit of a change in the statistic reporting as well. With that, we will move on to public comment. Any items not on the agenda or otherwise discussed? Not seeing any. So we would entertain a motion to enter into executive session per general law, chapter 30A, section 21A, to review the executive session minutes enumerated on the agenda for review and possible release. Clause 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Walsh, where the chair has determined an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission. To discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Donnelly's claim, where the chair has determined an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission. Item D, clause 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Zabelli's claim, where the chair has determined an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission. And item E, clause 3, to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation regarding Turo, where the chair has determined an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission. Not to return to open session. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
This motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Topham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you all.